People say a mother's love is endless, but what happens when that love is tested again and again? The sun was just rising over the quiet town of Enugu, birds chirped, and the streets were beginning to fill with life. But inside one small house, a storm was brewing. Clara sat at the edge of her bed, staring at her worn hands. She had been a stepmother to 3 children for 5 years, ever since she married their father, Kenneth. He was once kind and loving, but ever since he got promoted at work, something changed. He became distant, proud, and cold. Clara tried her best to care for the children like her own. She cooked their favorite meals, helped with homework, and tucked them in at night, but they never accepted her. To them, she was just that woman who replaced their late mother. The eldest, Adora, made life the hardest. She would speak rudely, ignore Clara's instructions, and whisper lies to her siblings. But Clara stayed silent. She believed love would win them over. Then things got worse. Kenneth began blaming Clara for everything. If the children misbehaved, it was her fault. If dinner was late, she was lazy. He even stopped giving her money for household needs. Clara felt invisible in her own home, but she held on, hoping things would change, until one night something inside her broke. As she stood alone in the kitchen, tears running down her face, Clara whispered to herself, "They think I'm weak because I've been silent, but even angels have limits." From that moment, Clara decided, if they wouldn't respect her love, they would feel her absence, and maybe, just maybe, they would regret it. Clara woke up earlier than usual the next morning. The house was silent, the kind of silence that usually brought her peace. But today, it only reminded her how lonely she felt. She looked at the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Her eyes had lost their shine, her cheeks were sunken, and her smile, once warm and wide, had disappeared. As she moved through the house preparing breakfast, no one offered a greeting. Adora walked past her without even looking up. Junior, the middle child, complained about the food without tasting it. The youngest, Ebere, just stared at her with wide, unsure eyes. Kenneth, as usual, left for work without a word. Clara stood there, surrounded by people, but felt completely alone. At the market, her friend Mama Nkechi noticed. "Clara, your face is tired," she said gently. "You need rest, my sister. Are you okay?" Clara smiled weakly. "I'm fine. Just busy," she replied, not wanting to explain. How could she explain that in her own home? She was like a shadow, present but unnoticed. That evening, Clara sat outside and watched the sunset. The orange and pink colors danced across the sky, reminding her of simpler days, when love felt real and life was full of hope. She thought about her late mother, a strong woman who always said, "Don't let the world turn your heart to stone." Clara didn't want to change. She didn't want to be bitter. But love wasn't working. Her kindness had been mistaken for weakness. And so she began to think of a different plan, not out of hatred, but out of pain. If they couldn't see her heart, maybe they would notice her absence. Maybe then they would understand what they had lost. The next morning, the house felt unusually quiet. Clara didn't wake up early to make breakfast. The kitchen was cold. The aroma of fresh pap and akara was missing. At first, no one noticed. Adora rolled her eyes and walked into the kitchen, expecting her usual cup of tea. But the table was empty. "Where's Clara?" she muttered. Junior ran from room to room, then shouted, "She's not here!" Kenneth was still getting ready for work when the noise reached him. "What's all this shouting?" he barked. "Clara is gone," Adora said with annoyance. She didn't make food or even clean the sitting room. Kenneth frowned, surprised but unwilling to show it. "Maybe she went to the market early," he mumbled. But even he didn't believe his own words. Clara never left without informing someone, and she always left a note. This time, nothing. As the day passed, her absence began to sting. The house grew messier. No one had clean uniforms. The children didn't know where their books were. The laundry piled up, dinner, burnt rice, and undercooked beans that Junior tried to make. Day 2 came. Still no sign of Clara. Now, even Adora began to worry. She remembered how Clara used to sing softly in the evenings, how she always found her lost socks, and how she once stayed up all night when Ebere had a fever. By day 3, Kenneth had stopped pretending. He sat quietly in the living room, staring at the empty space where Clara's sewing machine used to be. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of her absence. "She really left," he whispered. "She's really gone." But what they didn't know was this. Clara hadn't gone far. She was watching, waiting, and teaching them a lesson they'd never forget. Clara sat quietly in a small room at her cousin's house in the next town. It was peaceful, and for the first time in a long while, no one was shouting her name or blaming her for something she didn't do. She finally had time to breathe, to rest, and to think. But more than anything, she wanted them to feel her absence, not because she wished them harm, but because she needed them to see her worth. Meanwhile, back at home, the children were struggling. Junior forgot his lunch at home. Clara used to remind him every day. Ebere cried at school because no one braided her hair that morning. Adaora burned her blouse while trying to iron it. And for the first time, she called her stepmother's name with softness. Clara would have fixed this, she whispered, her voice trembling. Kenneth was not doing any better. His shirts were wrinkled, the house was a mess, and he was eating cold bread for dinner. He didn't even realize how much Clara did until everything fell apart without her. At work, he lost focus. At home, he lost peace. One evening, he found Ebere crying in a corner. "I miss Mummy Clara," she sniffled. He bent down and held her, feeling shame crawl up his spine. "Me too," he admitted. Clara's plan was working, not as revenge, but as a wake-up call. She didn't destroy the house, shout, or curse anyone. She simply removed herself, and her absence spoke louder than her words ever could. Back in her room, Clara held her Bible and prayed, "Lord, let them see the truth, not just about me, but about love, respect, and family." And slowly, in her silence, their hearts began to change. By the end of the week, the house was in chaos. The children were always late for school. The fridge was empty. The floor was dirty. No one knew what to cook, what to wear, or what to do. The silence that once ignored Clara had now turned into a loud cry for help. Adaora sat on the veranda, hugging her knees. "Maybe she's not coming back," she said quietly. Junior and Ebere looked at her, eyes wide with fear. "We should call her," Junior whispered. But no one had Clara's number. Kenneth had deleted it in anger after a small argument weeks ago, not thinking he'd ever need it again. At work, Kenneth's boss called him in. "You've been distracted," he said firmly. "Sort yourself out or we'll have to make changes." That night, Kenneth sat in the living room, staring at the family photo on the wall. Clara stood beside him in the picture, smiling, her arms gently resting on the children's shoulders. It was the only family photo they ever took, and now it hurt to look at. "I was wrong," he said aloud. "I took her for granted. We all did." He gathered the children and did something he had never done before. He apologized. "I failed Clara," he admitted, "and I failed you too." Adaora wiped her tears. "We pushed her away. I never even said thank you," Junior whispered. "Do you think she'll ever come back?" Kenneth didn't know the answer, but he knew one thing. If they ever got another chance, they would do better. Clara sat at her cousin's kitchen table, sipping tea and writing in her small notebook. Days had passed, and she had found peace in her quiet life, but her heart still ached for the children, even for Adaora. She never wanted to hurt them. She only wanted to be seen, to be loved. Her cousin Amaka walked in and smiled. "Still writing in that little book of yours?" Clara nodded. "I'm writing a letter. Not out of anger, but closure." That evening, Clara handed the letter to Amaka. "Please give this to Kenneth. If he asks where I am, tell him I'm safe, but I'll only return if I believe things will truly change." 2 days later, Kenneth received the letter. His hands trembled as he opened it. "Dear Kenneth and children, I didn't leave out of hatred. I left because I was tired of being invisible, blamed, and unloved. I gave all I had, and still, it was never enough. I am not perfect, but I tried to be a mother, a wife, and a friend. All I wanted was to be treated with kindness. I'm not asking for gifts or apologies. I just want to be respected and to live in a home where love is real. If that day ever comes, maybe I'll find my way back. Yours, Clara." Tears streamed down Kenneth's face. He passed the letter to Adaora, who read it out loud to her siblings. For the first time, they understood Clara's heart, and now they wanted to fight for her. It was a Sunday morning when Clara heard a soft knock at the door. Her cousin answered, then turned to her with a knowing smile. "You have visitors." Clara stepped outside and froze. There stood Kenneth, Adaora, Junior, and Ebere holding flowers, books, and a handmade card. Adaora stepped forward first. "Clara, I was wrong. I didn't see how much you loved us." "I'm so sorry," Junior added. "We miss your cooking. And your hugs." Ebere ran and hugged her tightly. "I miss your stories at night." Kenneth looked her in the eye. "Clara, I failed you. I let pride blind me. But I've changed. We all have. Please, come home." Tears welled up in Clara's eyes. She had dreamed of this moment, but she wasn't sure if it was real. "Why now?" she asked softly. "Because we finally understand your value," Kenneth said. "And we're ready to love you the way you deserve." Clara took a deep breath. Her heart was still tender, but it was healing. She looked at the children, then at the man she once loved, and maybe still did. "I'll come home," she said slowly. "But this time, things must be different. Love must be loud and respect must be real." They all nodded. This time they meant it. The house was filled with laughter again, Clara's laughter. The children helped her cook. Kenneth joined her in washing dishes. Adaora often sat with her asking for advice. Junior proudly followed her around. and a bear refused to sleep without one of her bedtime stories. Clara didn't return as the woman they once ignored. She came back as the woman they finally honored. Her silence had been her loudest lesson. The moral lesson of this story is to never take for granted the quiet sacrifices of those who care for you. Love isn't just about words, it's about actions. Respect those who hold your home together because sometimes losing them is the only way to see their worth. And as for Clara, she learned that sometimes stepping away isn't giving up. It's the strongest form of love. End of the story. Clara didn't return as the woman they once ignored. She came back as the woman they finally honored. As Clara's journey came full circle, her family learned a lesson they would never forget. But the question remains, have you ever felt invisible or taken for granted in your family or relationships? How did you cope with that? Clara chose to step away to make her family realize her worth. Do you think distance can sometimes help people see what they've lost? Share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think is the most important lesson Clara's family learned? How would you have reacted if you were in their shoes? Have you ever had a moment where you realized you took someone for granted? What did you do to make it right? Do you believe that love and respect can be restored once they've been broken? Why or why not? I would love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and let's start a conversation. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel for more powerful tales, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Your support helps us share these lessons with more people. Thank you for watching.